All right, thanks for tuning in to Wheel Life Cycling. I'm going to do a little candid talk regarding cycling and sports in general. And of course, the channel is Wheel Life Cycling, and it's about, cycling. And the title says it all, right? How I ruined my career in pro cycling. And I'm going to tell you how not to make the mistakes that I made. Back in the late 70s, yeah, I'm 60, I'm 66. So I've been cycling for a long time. So back in the late 70s, early 80s, I joined. Okay, first of all, back up. I wanted to change my life and I wanted to get into sport. So I started running, okay? And I did a lot of cross country running and long distance running. I was preparing for, I guess my first marathon was 1985. It was Boston Marathon. And I did that run in 2 hours and 32 minutes, which is, pretty good for a young guy, I guess, right? Well, it's not exactly, my timeline is not exactly right. I was running road races when I was younger, but I started bicycling in the late 70s, early 80s. The Boston Marathon was 1985. I think I was 30 something years old when I did a 232 marathon. That was my first Ironman. First marathon. But I was cycling and I joined a team in New England called Pittsburgh Cycling. And it was a great cycling club. And of course, I was young and dumb, right? And I was training and racing, and I was actually, you start out at class 4, 3, 2, and I was a amateur pro-am. And so I started taking races up in New Hampshire, up in Maine, New England. I started, first and second place, and with seasoned athletes already. And I took a bunch of preems, and I started getting, it took about 2 years, and I started getting, pretty proficient at cycling. And of course, any kind of sport is also conducive to a family and the encouragement, and I came from a pretty messed up family, so I was doing everything on my own, still going to high school and college, did everything on my own. and um let's see, I think, yeah. So then I went down. One of the big races was a 3-day race in my Coconut Grove, Florida. Greg LeMond was there. I guess some 7-Eleven guys were there, and I was supported by my team. I said I'm going down to race Greg LeMond, right? And I got pictures with Greg LeMond, which is it's pretty neat to look back at these things. And of course, they blew me away because I wasn't seasoned enough for the pros. And so it was 1981 when a friend of mine, a New Hampshire friend of mine, said, "Hey, you know what? You're tall. Did you ever think about doing a triathlon?" I said, "What? What's that?" Right? So of course, already cycling and I'm already running, but I'm not like a proficient swimmer. So being young and crazy, I got excited and I trained for 1 year in New England, and it wasn't easy. And I signed up for Ironman 1982, my first Ironman ever. And I did that in like 9 hours and 40 minutes. But it was extremely difficult. And then, of course, after that, I decided, I'm gonna get better in doing triathlon. And that's where I went wrong. Okay. Of course, I still raced in cycle races, but I wasn't as good because I was breaking up my energies and focusing on, three sports. And guys, don't make that mistake. If you like cycling and you think you're a good cyclist, don't branch out to triathlons. Not only is it time consuming, it's very expensive. So just so you know, I did triathlons for about off and on for almost 20 years. Um, and I did my last one in 2000 and I think 11, somewhere around that, up in Utah. It was a half Ironman. And, it's just a lot of work. And I decided that was my last one. And I would do only, and of course, it beats your body up a lot running. Running beats your body up tremendously. As a matter of fact, a few years back, a doc told me that maybe someday I'll need a hip replacement. Well, that kind of bothered me. So I just I got more into cycling, back to what my love was. So don't make the mistake that I've made. I mean, I branched out in everything. I was a 1995, I took a championship in Irvine, California, in inline skating. 10K, I think it was. Once again, I branched out, right? But, cycling and inline skating uses kind of like the same muscles. It does help you a lot if you're young. It's really difficult on the lower back. It's not only that, it's really dangerous, right? I've taken a few falls. I've raced in Texas. I've raced all through California, San Francisco, Huntington Beach. But I always come back to cycling. So I'm back into cycling now, and this week just finished up yesterday, and I did 225 miles. Uh, and I did a ride the other day. Um, I normally do a 16 and 16, 32 miles out and back. And we have a lot of wind. I live in the high desert, so we have a lot of wind. So Thursday, I think I did 21.2 miles per hour for the 16 out and 19 for the 16 back. And of course, it was somewhat of a headwind, crosswind. Um, but look, if I would have stayed in cycling, and actually, I'm thinking about racing here in the next month. If I would have stayed in cycling, I probably would have had a career. I even went to Europe. I went to Holland. I raced for a Dutch team over there. Um, yeah, it was crazy. I love cycling. As you can tell, I'm 66 and I'm still cycling, right? So really, if you're watching this channel and you're thinking about, doing triathlons and other sports events, and you love one event more than another, and you're pretty good at it, I would say just don't do it. Just just do what do. Either you're a triathlete or you're a cyclist or you're a swimmer, okay? But you're talking 5 hours a day minimum as a triathlete training, and the food and the preparations, and I mean, I think it was even Dave Scott who got a divorce back in '86. So in '86, I moved out to California, and I did a triathlon out on Catalina Island, and I finished like 12th. And Dave Scott wasn't competing, but he was there. And I talked to him, and I guess he was going through a divorce. He got a divorce. It's a lot of work, guys. I mean, look, even by myself right now, cycling, you have to wash your equipment. You have to maintain your bicycle, and you have to eat well, and you have to sleep well, and you have to prepare for things. Speaking of which, it's Memorial Day, and I just finished a 42 miles at about 16 and a half miles an hour. And of course, I'm on Strava. And it's nice because you compete against other locals. I'm having a cold IPA. And I grow my own vegetables, so I had my chard kale. I had some ribs, rice. I just had a nice meal I made for myself. And you have to do this day in and day out. You have to take care of your clothing, prep your clothing, have different changes. It's not inexpensive. So in a few days from now, I'm going to do another video, because I haven't done any videos in a while here on Wheel Life Cycling. And I changed my rear tire to a surface, okay? Now, I think it's a great training tire, to be honest with you. I use the Continental Gators, and when you use a Gator, all of a sudden, the Gator's flat, there's no tread left, and all of a sudden you're going to see a spot where the canvas is showing through. They don't make it even, they're not making an even rubber around the tire, right? And quite honestly, guys, they don't put a lot of rubber on those tires, right? And I guess, and they're not cheap. I paid $9 at REI. I guess it was discontinued or not selling anymore from REI. And I'll tell you, these Surface 28mm by 700C, I'm going to do the tally on it, but I think it's around 3,000 miles already on one of my bikes. But I just changed the rear tire on my Tachyon Lightspeed, which is an old bike, but it works really well, guys. It's the motor, it's not the machine. Although the machine does help. But I'm going to do a video here in a couple days regarding the mileage and stuff. But back to my main concern about I ruined my career as a pro. I did. And there's nothing I can do about it. I'm already old. I didn't have the luxury to have a family to support me in riding and racing anyways. But I was so close to going to Europe and training to stay well, I was in Europe, I was in Holland. I was so close to just staying there and racing as a career. And I didn't do it. I was there for about almost a year. And it was great racing the Dutch, because the Dutch are fast. They're fast cyclists. And but growing up in New England, the roads were beautiful, a lot of hills, and many people called me the Russian because I was pretty strong as a young kid in the hills. Very, very powerful. And I still have some, leg muscle now, but it's not like it used to be, that's for sure. Um, and I have to face that and understand that I have limitations on the old body. But anyways, I wanted to get this video out to tell you guys, if you're interested in doing triathlons or any other sports, focus and try to stay on one sport. I say, if you're a bicycle racer, stay with bicycle racing. Don't be a triathlete. Just don't do it. So I hope this, helps anybody who has that concern, who is thinking about entering that career, because triathlons are very expensive, because you have to get to the location, you have to prep for it, and it costs money to fly, and you have to have your bike boxed up, and there's all kinds of logistics involved. Man, I don't. If I took the money that I spent on all the triathlons, I've done them. Panama City, New York, Tupper Lake. I've done New England triathlons. I was actually ranked 11th in a tri. What was the name of that? I'm not sure if it was it was a beer company, and they had a series. And I would think I was ranked 11th in New England as a triathlete at the time. Or I don't know if it was across the country. I think it was across the country. But like I said, I was pretty proficient. But it's tough. Triathlons are tough. Unless you can focus all your time and have somebody bankroll you and support you, like a family member or something, to do that sport, or be sponsored. It's a tough sport to get into and stay with it. It takes a lot of mind discipline. Extremely, you need to be extremely disciplined on your food, on your sleep, on your training, on your schedule. You don't have a life. You really don't have a life. It's because if you're doing full Ironmans, guys, it's a lot of work. I told you, 5-6 hours. I mean, look, it's simple. If you're gonna be a 2-mile swimmer, you got to swim 2 miles every day, right? Or 3, right? Let's say you can do that in an hour, okay? If you can run 10 miles an hour, so like with that swim's out of the way, it's already 8 a.m. Let's say, no, 6 a.m. Let's say it's 6 a.m. and you go to the pool and you swim for an hour. Okay, that's already 1 hour. Bicycling takes a lot of time, right? You don't do 100 miles in 5 hours every day. So you're going to be at least 4 hours on that bicycle. So you're already at 5 hours already on a bicycle on one day, out of one day. And you still need to run. So I used to run 10 miles in 1 hour, okay? And it takes a lot to get to that point. That's 6 hours a day, guys. How about work? Yeah, it's tough. It's a real tough responsibility. I know. I can tell you right now, you don't have a life, and it's a lot of work. So, if you're a cyclist and you're thinking about branching out, don't do it. All right. Take my advice from an old, experienced pro-am failed bicycle racer. But I'm not letting it get me down, because I'm still healthy, 66, like I said, and I can do. I did 62 miles yesterday. Yeah, and a couple thousand feet of climb, and that was done at 17. I think 16 and a half, 17 miles an hour. So, you know, I'm still hanging in there. But